Okay, so right here I have set up a basic scene which contain our camera, character, and a platform with layers set to ground. And of course under character game object called fit pose to check whether our character is hitting the ground. Now if we play this, you can see I already have movement and jump controller. So first you're going to add a new empty game object and call it laser. I'm going to reset all the transform for this game object. Add a new 2D square sprite under the laser game object, and we're gonna call it beam. And again, make sure to reset all the transform for this beam. I'm going to move the laser slightly to the right just to keep away from the player a little bit. Next, let's select our beam, hit R for scale tool, hold Ctrl and stretch it out in Y-axis. I'm also gonna make this beam more thinner. After you satisfy the size of the beam, add a new box called the 2D component and check its trigger. This is to check whether our beams collider intersecting with our character. Now we're going to add a new C# script called laser beam and open it up. First we have to reference our box called the 2D and sprite render component inside the script. I will type a class box called the 2D and call it laser collider. Then inside the start method, I will type a code to reference our box called the 2D component from our inspector. I will type a class sprite renderer and call it laser image. Then I'm going to repeat the same process for sprite renderer inside the start method. Now we need an indicator to check whether our laser is on or not. And for that, I'm going to type public bool and call it is laser on. I'll then create two public void to check if our laser is off. We want to set a time before we start the laser. And if our laser is on, how long it will be active before it turns back off. Now we need to write a code what we want to do when it's on and off. So inside the update method, if its laser on is equal to false, I want my collider and sprite renderer to be disabled. For that, I set my laser collider and laser image enable equal to false. And else if its laser on is equal to true, both laser collider and laser image enable are equal to true. The laser code is done. Now we need to control the flow of the laser time. I will type IEnumerator and call it start laser. In the first state, I want my laser to wait for a while before it's turning on. I type yield return new wait for seconds, and the time is according to time to start. And after the time is complete, I want my laser to turn on. In this case, its laser on is equal to true. Now if our laser is on, how long it will be active before it's turning back off. For this, I'm just going to copy the first line of code and paste over here. Inside the bracket, change to laser time. And after my laser active time is complete, I'm going to turn off the laser. For that, I'm going to copy and paste this and change its laser on is equal to false. With that's done, we have finished the most important part of the code. However, we have no code to tell when we want this function to call. In this case, I want this function to be called when the laser is off, and I want my laser to be off by default. Inside start method, its laser on is equal to false. Since our laser is off when we start the game, inside the update method, if its laser on is equal to false, I'll type start coroutine and in bracket start laser. So it will run the code when our laser is off. Now when you save this, go back to Unity, add our laser beam script, set the time for time to start and laser time. And when we play this, our laser is off and after few seconds, boom! It's turning on and then off after few seconds. And our laser is looping just like what we wanted. Our components check and uncheck after few seconds. However, we still don't have a code that will impact our character when it enters our collider. Now this is how we're going to use its trigger to have an effect to our player. Select our beam, inside the drop down tag and add tag. Hit the plus icon and call it laser. Hit save. Again select our beam, click the drop down tag and choose laser. Now I'm going to select my character and open up my player controller script. Here we need to set up our character death code. Then I'm going to use on trigger into 2D. Here I'm going to type in if we intersect with an object that tag laser, which we set up earlier, then destroy this game object. And you know, for debugging purpose, I'm going to add debug log message called player is dead. Alright, so now when we finish this, you also need to make sure your character have both rigid body and collider component. And when we play this, you can see our character immediately die when it hits our laser. You can see inside our hierarchy is gone. Inside our console, we have message player is dead. Now, instead of disabling your laser image by using sprite renderer, we can replace with animation. To do this, select beam and add animator component. Inside the project, I'm going to add a new animator controller and let's call this laser. Again, select our beam and drag laser controller inside animator component. Make sure your beam selected, go to Windows, Animation and Animation. Let's hit create and I'm going to call this laser off. Hit save. Now make sure you hit the record button, go to the sprite renderer color and set the alpha into 0. Let's unrecord this and let's create a new animation and I'm going to call this laser on. Hit save. Now hit the record button. So for the first frame, I'm going to set to red, second will be turquoise, and for the third one, I'm going to copy the first one into the third. Let's unrecord this. Now let's take a look. I think it is good enough for now, obviously for prototyping purpose. Now let's go to the animator tab. Here you can see the clip we made. Going to slightly arrange this, then go to parameter panel, hit plus and choose bool. I'm going to call this is laser on. Now click laser off animation, right click and make transition to laser on. Right click laser on, make transition to laser off. Now let's select the first transition. Uncheck has exit time, uncheck fixed duration, set 0 for transition duration. Inside the conditions, hit plus, make sure its laser on is true. Repeat the same process for the second transition, but only this time inside the conditions, its laser on is set to false. We are finally done set up our laser animation. Now all we need to do is trigger the animation at the right moment. Let's delete all the code that based on sprite render. Instead, I will type a class animator and call it laser anim. Inside the start method, I'm going to copy and paste this. I'm going to change laser anim and I'm going to change it to animator component. Inside update method, if our laser is off, we want to play the animation based on the condition that we set here. So I'm going to type in laser anim.set bool and inside the bracket, type a string is laser on set to false. Then, I'm going to copy and paste. If our laser is on, I'm going to set it to true. And that's it! We are finished! If we save this and hit play, you can see everything working out as we planned. Now obviously, you can do this much better than me, but right now it's just for showcasing purposes. You can also make a version of it, so I'm going to call the original one is vertical, and duplicate this, and change for horizontal. Then we can select the beam and rotate it in 90 degrees. So now when you play this, we have both vertical and horizontal laser. Feel free to add more variation. And that's all I have for you today. If you found this video is helpful, please consider like and subscribe for all that fun stuff. Have a wonderful day everyone.